Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for joining, Jonathan. So CES, I feel like the most exciting part of CES this year is seeing the actual use cases of AI, seeing it in action. Some of them are more boring than others, but I think one of the most interesting and most relevant applications has been in sports. So tell us more. I think we've all seen IBM's logos at the US Open and Wimbledon and Masters, but it's way more than a logo. It's way more than a sponsorship. Like how are you powering these events and helping that fan experience?
Yeah, first, Kaleigh, thanks for having me and for joining me. I'm really excited to be here. I don't like to do sponsorships, just candidly. I don't want to just slap our logo on a jersey or a court or something like that. I want to make sure we're doing partnerships. And when we do partnerships, I look for three things. One is, how do we change the way fans engage with the sport, the team, the tournament? Two is, how do players change the way that they perform? Athletes change the way they perform. And three, is how do the organizations change the way that they operate? And what can they do to change? And all of it really is being driven by AI. And automation, I should say. We're very fortunate in that we've had three very long-term partnerships with Augusta National and the Masters Golf Tournament, with Wimbledon, and with the US Open. And those really have been foundational in the way we do it. And it's important for us because it helps us show the technologies in a way that people can better understand it. Because I think a lot of people, AI and some broader technologies can be very confusing and or daunting to people. And so we spend a lot of time with them focused on those partnerships. And then recently this year, we added to the mix partnership with Ferrari, and changing the way that the F1 team and Ferrari is engaging with their fans. And two would be UFC. And I think a lot of people looked at us and were like, IBM UFC, that's interesting. But we're changing the way insights get delivered out of the bouts that they have, out of the matches that they have. And we were just there this morning with a small group of people. They're out just outside of, not far off the Strip. And there were people, when we walked in, before we walked in, were like, I don't know, this doesn't quite make sense. I wanted to come and learn more about it. And at the end, they were all like, oh my God, this makes complete sense. I totally understand what they're doing. And what you're doing, and this is just really going to revolutionize the way people engage and get data and insights, not just for UFC, but can happen on a much broader scale.
I love that. And so the fans then experience this, understand the technology, understand IBM better. What do you want them to take away when they leave that event?
We want them to be more, general fans, we want them to be more engaged with the sport, with the team, right? I mean, that's what we really want there. We spend a lot of time, though, also using these partnerships to highlight the technology and the solutions with our direct customers, our direct clients and partners, so that they better understand how they could use it in their own organization to make changes.
I think that the real application, there's so many shiny objects out there right now, and that idea of the actual application for their businesses, and I'm sure many of the fans are also customers, right, or prospective customers. How are you measuring success with sports partnerships? How do you see the value coming back? And I don't want to talk about going down funnels, but how that ties back to your business partnerships.
For us, we really spend a lot of time focusing on, when we bring people to these events, making sure we've got the right people that are coming to the events and the right opportunities and where it would be applicable. So we don't, when we go to the US Open, across 2 weeks, we will bring clients and partners to those to the tournament. We don't invite just any partner. We want to make sure that we are talking with partners who are engaged, where we think we can move the needle with them and where they could see a new application. And it is an opportunity for us to really create a different kind of relationship. And we track across that. So it's not just, hey, we showed up here. We look at some of the broader metrics around, share ads and all that kind of stuff, but then, and recognition that comes with that, but then we also get very deep down funnel and look at it in more detail.
I think one thing we pride ourselves at BI is to make journalism not boring. And I think the same thing with technology. And I watch what the stories that we partner on that you're telling on BI, and the ones that do the best are about the sports partnership, about fantasy football, about what it actually means, and capturing the cultural zeitgeist, right? Not just talking about the wonky aspects of the technology. There's a lot of marketers here who are probably challenged by their CMOs with the do more with less. I mean, the year of efficiency that has lasted many, many years. So stretching your assets, right? You do these sports partnerships, then you tell stories in more business-oriented resources like a BI. What's your advice to the marketers in the room on how to sweat your assets and tell that story as best you can with that efficiency and effectiveness in mind?
First, I think everybody's got to understand that it's not going to be an automatic return immediately. There will be some things that it's going to take some time. And there are a lot of places where I've worked in the past or had as clients in the past where people are, oh, this isn't working immediately, let's change direction. I'm very fortunate in that at IBM we really are trying to stay focused. And Arvind Krishna, our CEO, said, we want to be the leading hybrid cloud and AI company. And we are staying true. We're staying true to that mission. And we're using our assets effectively against that. And we're also, there's this how to do more with less. I was actually talking with Arvind this morning, way too early. I think it was 6 o'clock. Tomorrow I've got him.
Time zones.
I've got him at 5 a.m. tomorrow, so it gets even better. But the discussion this morning was around prioritization. And I would say this is really important for marketers. And it's not just for marketers, it's for everybody. There's sort of two types of prioritization. To do the important things and to do the work. And sometimes people are just prioritizing doing the work. Yep. And not necessarily prioritizing doing the important things that are going to deliver the outcomes. And you really have to prioritize inside the prioritization. I know that's, but I think that is really going to be essential. The other thing I'd say to everybody is you got to get current in the technology. The life cycle of technology skills today is just under 3 years. So if you really think about that, how do you use a tool? How do you use an AI tool? How are those tools changing? How do you work in an organization that has AI or different tools deployed? It's really making people look at things differently. From very simple things like, how do you ask the right question?
Yep.
And I think that's another really important thing for everybody to focus on.
So to double down on that, AI in marketing, we keep hearing that, right? We should do more AI in our marketing. Give us an example. I saw the Adobe Firefly partnership that you have. Tell us more about that and how you are applying it as a marketer too, not just because you work at IBM, but to make your marketing and your stories more effective.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Adobe piece. For Adobe Summit last year, we were here and we did an advertisement on the Sphere. And we used Firefly to help create what it was a fishbowl. We turned the Sphere into a fishbowl. And there were a bunch of quote unquote bad fish. There was instead of a goldfish, it was a 24-karat goldfish. It had a disco ball fish or a fish with a hole in the middle. And all these different fish showed problems that you can have if you don't trust your data and you don't have the right data. And then bad fish would disappear one by one, and then you'd have the right, the proper fish in there, and it said, trust what you create, Adobe and IBM. And for us, using Firefly, for example, to create those fish would have taken roughly 8 to 10 days without AI. We did it in about a day and a half on those fish. I mean, it just makes it so much faster when you're trying to do that. Now you have to go animate and do all that other stuff, but just it moves it so much faster. If I look at the average creative inside of IBM, we've got a studio we call Blue Studio inside marketing org. The average creative spends 80% of their time on derivative assets. Using AI, you can get those things moving much faster. And taking that 80 down to 20, 30, 40, whatever the number is, just unlocks a whole new fleet of people. The other place I would say is it's not just on assets in the creation, it's around media placement. And I see our partner Adam here, and we're using it to really get much more focused in where we deliver that. It's about events, and I see another one of our partners, Chris, here. And we're doing half the number of events today that we were doing 2 years ago. We're getting 5% more client interest and client signals out of those events, and we're getting them for about 30% cheaper than we were in the past. Because we're using AI to better target where we're going, what we're doing, looking at the returns, and getting the right people there. And then the last thing I'd say, which I'm really, really excited about, is how I now have a tool that I've been able to start using internally. It's just a beta that allows me to put natural language prompts in and understands our objectives and opportunities that are out there and can give me insights on what's the next best thing to do, where to go. So as that builds out and I can do more and I can put in more data and more feeds to make it even more insightful, I'm really excited. And I think we'll see a lot more of that this year.
That's amazing. I think you hit on this, and this is a little off script, but the trust part I think is so important in this. As AI, this was the year of all the deployment of AI. I know for a lot of other companies, you guys have been doing it for forever, but as this adoption phase starts to kick in going into next year, with so many different options, it's who can you trust, right? And I think it's so interesting. Scott Galloway gave his 2025 predictions, and one of them was with IBM and just like what you'll do in that space. And I think that's a really interesting aspect that we've forgotten about as we're talking about all the innovation is the trust. So tell us more about like how does that fit in for your customers? Are they relying on you more because they know and trust you as an existing customer?
There's an old saying that was, you never get fired for hiring IBM.
Love that.
And it's something that is built on trust. And that's been a foundation of our company from the very beginning. We're 113 years old. And I think the age of our company helps us in this regard, that we've got these principles that have been there forever. And they allows us to fall back on them. And make sure that we're guided by those. And trust is really there. You know, it's never going to be perfect, right? And when there is a problem, we're side by side with our clients, helping fix that problem and not going, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, like that's not the issue. The issue is fixing it, getting things back up and running, because we are the backbone of so many different things, or somebody called it the rails. And the ability to really partner and co-create is really important. And then the other thing I'd say that differentiates us, I think, from a lot of others, the juice behind all of this, the energy behind all of this is data. And our fundamental view of data is your data is your data. You don't need to bring us your data and lock it up in our cloud and our mainframes and we'll hold on to it, and when you want to go away, we're going to charge you some exorbitant unlock fee, and you can't have the solution and all that kind of stuff. Your data is your data. You keep the keys to your data, and we create solutions with your data. And if that wants to live on our cloud, on Azure, on Google, on AWS, on Ali Cloud, on premise, wherever it might be, we're fine with that. And that really helps people get more comfortable, especially as you look around the world. There are a lot more places that are starting to look at data sovereignty. much more seriously. And how do you deal with that, and how do we help our clients get over that? That's where they're coming and saying, okay, we're going to trust you to work with us on this because you respect that.
I love that. I think and it happens on a personal perspective and a professional place as we're all trying to implement it in our lives. And I get these questions all the time. Is it okay if I upload this to this? And can we do these things? And I think those types of trust is more than just like jargon. And being in the journalism business, we say it a lot, right? But I think it means so much in the B2B tech space as well. Last question before we open it up, and it's probably the question we're all answering the most here at CES. What's next? When you look ahead for IBM, where you're going to be in the next 2, 3, 5 years, what are you most excited about? Where is the evolution of all of the inventions? I mean, Watson, I can't remember how long ago it was that you guys came up with this, but it's amazing leading the change that you've had. So what's the next change?
You know, I've had this conversation with a few different people, and I've been on a couple panels. And yesterday somebody brought up the topic of agentic AI. And I think agentic is going to be very interesting. There is a cost issue that needs to be worked out on agentic AI. For people to really want to deploy it and be able to deploy it. Whether or not you want to is a different discussion, but be able to, because the costs can be very high. So I think that is going to be exciting when that gets tackled. I still think there's a lot more innovation coming in AI because most companies are just still dabbling in it and not using a ton of AI in a meaningful way, right? Because they're still trying to figure out what's the use case, where are we doing this. But the other place that we're also focused as a company is quantum. And quantum computing, we see monetizing in a meaningful way in the next 3 to 5 years. And it's also an important part on quantum around encryption and data security, because quantum safe encryption, quantum machines should be able to crack most encryption that's out there today. And unless you're really focused on it, excuse me, and taking steps now, they're gonna be big problems. So, quantum's exciting, further innovation in AI, just Gen AI, and then seeing where agentic goes as well.
It's wild. Quantum in 2 or 3 years is frightening and amazing at the same time. Let's open it up for questions for Jonathan.
Or for Kaleigh.
Here we go.
Thank you. I heard somebody ask this at a panel yesterday here, and I thought it was a great question. What was the last use in your personal lives when you used AI? Like what? Tell me about that.
I used it to get to my meeting today. I mean, just like in reality, it's like the taxi driver said, "Ooh, I forgot I asked them to go, I was going out to UFC, and she said, oh, I forgot my iPhone, and usually I'm just going up and down the strip, so can you use yours to tell me how I get there?" There you go. I mean, it's everywhere that we're using it. I used it. I'm getting ready for a meeting, like I said, at 5 a.m. tomorrow. There's some AI coming into the data that's helping us get ready to present.
I love it.
What about you, Kaleigh?
I used it this morning when I was writing a promotion announcement for somebody on my team. And I use too much jargon. I'm a salesperson. I'm super jargony. And so I used it to actually make which is very opposite, right? But I asked it to make my announcement more personal and more authentic to my speech and all of that. And it was hilarious how different and much more normal I sounded after I sent it. So, I think it's that type of, and I don't know if anyone else uses Notebook LM, but like that is it's still in beta, but with Google, like those types of things, I think turning a PowerPoint deck into a podcast, like genius, right? I've got 2 little boys. I can take them to school and listen to a podcast instead of reading the 50-page brief that we got from IBM. Like that's a really nice benefit. It wasn't 50
pages,
no,
come on.
I'm kidding.
But my brother uses it with his kids actually to help them check their homework. You can't use it ahead of time, but he helps if you use the library tool, it can then use some of the books, and then it helps them check their homework to see how they're using it. And they were resistant at first. They love it now.
So good. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Congratulations
you.
on
Thank
a
you,
great year.
Kaleigh and Jonathan. Good discussion with parents.